Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Jeff Raju on the line, and he's founder over at Stonehill Business Services. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about here today. So I do want to get into what you're doing over at Stonehill Business Services and also how you're helping emerging fund managers. I mean, especially when it comes to raising capital and doing it more efficiency in your overall platform. So we're going to get into that, of course. But before we do, how did you get into this business? Like, I see the term founder. Where'd that all start for you?
Sure. That's a great question. Basically, I've spent about 15 years working in the private equity venture capital industry across fund administration as a controller and roles supporting venture capital and private equity firms ranging from between $10 million in AUM to over multiple $billion in assets in AUM. So kind of seen the whole gambit and the different strategies and things like that over the years. I ventured out into the CFO services world about 5.5 years ago, and at the time I was just kind of supporting emerging managers, trying to support them on the GP side to help with the reporting and the back office, finance matters. And as I was doing that, I basically started to realize that there were some repeating patterns that were showing up. Some of it was driven by full staff and like headcounts that some of these billion-dollar firms have, but other things were just that they didn't know like which tools they needed and things like that. So
did that surprise you, by the way? Did that surprise you? I'm curious, when you were going through that phase, did that surprise you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was super kind of revelatory, if I can say that.
I like that. That's a good word, revelatory. I haven't heard that one in a while. I'll take that. And that's what I'm getting at, because you would think, right? You would think like, oh, this is all, because they're obviously committing capital, they're doing other things, and not talking negatively about anybody, but you know what I mean? Like, I would be surprised. I'm going through this, and I'm like, really? Like, you're seeing the same mistakes or the same opportunities over and over again, depending on how you look at it. Yeah. Is that kind of what was going on?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that, what I realize is that a lot of people in the fund manager space, like, let's just say that, they have experience in real estate and they might have been a real estate agent, or they might have had another business related to real estate. And then they realize that, hey, we had this investment strategy, we've tested it, and then they start moving towards the capital formation space. And the same thing could be true for multiple different industries. Like, let's say you're an executive in an energy company and you have all these contacts and companies that and so like they're very well versed in the portfolio companies and the investments that they know, but they're less prepared for all the other aspects that come along with this business model and the actual platform that comes with it. So that's where a lot of the gaps show up, and just the way that this industry has grown over the last 15 to 20 years, the formation of these service providers and the support that these GPs needed has still been kind of forming and growing over time. So this is something that I see that there are a lot of service providers, there are a lot of services being performed, but at the financial leadership level at these firms, they can't afford to hire somebody that is full-time that sits in that seat 60 hours a week versus, but they do need these tools to operate and at a level that the current sophisticated LP-based.
Awesome. So you see the need. So you see the need as you're going through this. What happens next? Like, where'd you get the idea to be like, okay, I can help solve this. I can fill in here. Like, what was your unique value proposition here?
Yeah, I think that my unique, experience and exposure to the space across different perspectives allowed me to kind of put these pieces together in a way that other service providers just haven't really been able to. If you're a fund administrator kind of sitting in that side of the world and you're just focusing on the financial reporting and the administrative aspects, and they don't get into the forward-looking aspects that the fund managers and the GPs need, that comes more from sitting in the GP seat and understanding what kind of questions that they're going to need to answer internally, leveraging the information that they get from other parties, but kind of getting and collecting and utilizing that information to make it usable is the gap that I was identifying, and seeing that, other people weren't really seeing this gap in the same way. And that's where, I tried to take what I did for all these other clients over the years to, put that together in a way that, hey, like we can actually serve these things a la carte and give you the data that you need and deliver it on a fractional package instead of hiring a full finance team, portfolio management team, CFO, all these different pieces.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And so we should probably take a step back here. For Stonehill Business Services, like what's your sweet spot? You mentioned emerging managers, but like explain that a little bit.
Sure. So been trying to get away from just going off of dollar amounts, but in general, like a sub $50 million fund is kind of like on the smaller side. Their operations are a little bit simpler. All of this depends really on their investment strategy. They might have a $50 million fund, but if they're only writing like, $200,000 checks, there's 100 investments in the portfolio, so it could get pretty complicated in that sense. But yeah, I would say that emerging managers, in my view, are managers that are either coming out of syndications, going from fund one to fund two, emerging managers moving from high net worth investors or high income investors or friends and family network investors to more sophisticated investor marketing and acquisition models that, you're looking for family offices or other types of institutional investors that are going to have like kind of higher requirements for what they're looking for and their standards of investments.
Talk to me a little bit more about kind of how you plug into, like, let's just say the existing LP framework, or for these managers, like these existing frameworks, like how does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, one of the big things that I try to communicate is that, all these other service providers that already exist, the fund admins, bookkeepers, tax, audit, like all these existing service providers, they're super valuable and super important to the infrastructure. Where we come in is to become that centralized oversight for all of these parties from like the financial leadership standpoint. So coordinating all of the tax processes and quarterly reporting processes and audit processes, all of these things that, if they're, left up to just the fund manager that may or may not be well versed in these technical aspects of the fund and things like that, we're, as the CFO, we're still acting as a leader and kind of coordinating and pulling in information from multiple different parties to make the best decisions. But what we're focusing on is coming in, plugging into the GP from the GP side, sitting as that financial leader, and then organizing all of these items into workflows that a billion-dollar platform has already kind of set up for themselves. So we institutionalize those processes, make sure that they're running on the cadence that they should be, and then we quarterback those to maintain it on an ongoing basis. So whether that's the tax reporting, and that tax reporting is just, sending out the filing tax returns. The other layer to that is like, if the investments are pass-throughs and you need to do like tax estimates and tax projections, kind of like have processes to predict and foresee future tax consequences and things like that, right? So same thing on the financial side is like, of course, we're going to do the financial reporting every quarter. One, the base token or table stakes for us is, we're going to review the financials and make sure it's accurate. Yeah. The next level to that is really the forward-looking aspect and being like, okay, well, this is the amount of capital that we've deployed. This is the amount of capital that we promised that we'll distribute by this time frame. This is the type of cash flows that the fund is seeing. This is how much capital we should call. All these different metrics about decision making and improving that decision making process is where we plug in from the GP side, and we just layer in on top of all these other existing providers, and they're going to continue doing what they do.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Like, you're not trying to replace, or you're adding another layer, but a beneficial layer to make sure it's kind of like that everything sticks. Yeah, and what is that right? First of all, let me stop there. That's accurate. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We don't want to add complexity.
And I would imagine that this, like a big piece of this, especially some of the tax things, other things like this, the idea and the game plan here would be to obviously efficiency, but also eliminating or decreasing any type of reporting mistakes or anything else that would impact like fundraising. Is that kind of accurate? Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I think that it's overall, that's the goal. And it's like most of these managers, when you're starting out and it's just like a 2-person GP team and maybe like a couple people on the investment team, they're not thinking about, hey, we need to build like a tax projection model or talk to the tax people in June and send them the projection in July and like review this and, make an estimated tax payment or communicate this, or we'll change our strategy so that this tax event doesn't hit until the following tax year. Those type of processes that these billion-dollar platforms regularly go through and already have a process for. The emerging managers don't have that, and that's what we're trying to help them professionalize and institutionalize their processes.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. It's a good story, and I like it. It kind of reminds me like once upon a time when outsourced CFO and that kind of thing like came about many years ago, and people were getting used to, or even outsourced CMO, chief marketing officer, and like and that, and so this becomes just another way. And I know they have some similar offerings like this, like in the RIA space and some of the other spaces that are obviously not different niches in finance, but to see this happening for the funds, I mean, ultimately the goal would be how to, to let the LPs and let the other, GPs, let them all just have an easier go at it, because it's hard enough to raise money, right? Than adding so they can go do what they need to be doing, which is raising funds and allocating funds, versus thinking about like, oh man, did we do what's going on here in in our day to day, right? Especially for smaller teams, like our first time fund managers or emerging, whatever you want to say. Like that's I think a great story. So what's been the response to this, Jeff? Like I'm curious, like how has it been received by the community?
Yeah, I think that you just mentioned it right now, the outsourced CFO, MO, there's outsourced everything nowadays, right? So that industry and like the delivery of these fractional services has boomed in like the regular industry, construction companies, software as a service, all of these different companies. They're benefiting from it for the same reasons that a fund manager and venture capital private equity firm would also benefit. And the reason is that the cost of building out this team internally is unaffordable at certain stages, right? When you're an emerging manager, you're only getting $1 or $2 million a year in management fees. You don't want to send out another $300, $400K plus equity to a CFO, and not to mention all the support staff that they would need to kind of do the processes that we're doing. But the other part of that is that it's unaffordable at the stage that they're in, but at the same time, the cost of getting it wrong is so high that, that it's worth it.
Great point on that one, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. So the cost of getting it wrong is you're going to lose your LP's confidence. You're not going to get it, raise fund 2 to the size that you want it to, getting to that scale. And really, like, our belief is that these firms don't become institutional when they get bigger, and when they scale, they get bigger because they became institutional and because they processize these items and have built a firm that's an actual business.
Yeah. Jeff, this is awesome having you on today. If somebody's listening or watching this and they want to learn more about Stonehill Business Services, how do they connect with you and your team?
Sure. You can always reach me on LinkedIn. It's Jeffrey Raju, founder of Stonehill Business Services on LinkedIn. You can also visit our website at stonehillcfo.com, and there's a contact page there as well, and send any info that you might want or questions that you might have. Love to talk to any emerging managers, any other service providers in the space, anybody that, I can connect to valuable people in my network, or provide any type of assistance with thinking through launching a fund or building a fund business. If that is interesting to you, I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. For everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some contact info in the show notes, so you can just click on the links, head right on over, connect with Jeff and his team. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day, bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. Great to talk to you.